This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Alright, so essentially this video is a follow-up to last week's video talking about the digital cameras that I own, but we're going to focus more today on the Fuji Xpro2 and why I think you should own one in 2021. Now, being that it is the new year, by the way, Happy New Year everyone, the Fuji Xpro2 is starting to age gracefully, I think. As the years go on, they do start to get a little bit cheaper, but even till this day, it still competes with the top of the line Fuji cameras like the Xpro3 and even the X-T4. And I'm going to share with you guys a couple of different reasons, probably 5 or 6, why I think you should own one of these in 2021. But before we get started, if you guys are brand new to this channel, man, grab some coffee. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you are brand new. We are almost to 100K subs and we have a huge giveaway planned. Also, shout out to the Dark Room. They will be sponsoring the giveaway, guys. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But without further ado, you guys, let's go ahead and just jump right into this video. Alright, so most people when buying a Fuji camera, they want something that is very stylish and modern looking, but is also going to provide them with excellent kind of image quality. And the Fuji Xpro2 provides you with just that. It's an excellent everyday camera suitable for street photography, landscape photography, just pretty much everyday photography, and it can also be used professionally. And honestly, you guys, with 24 megapixels, it still competes with today's newer sensors in like the X-T3 or even like the X-T4. But with that said, you guys, the Xpro2 is not the newest of the Xpro family. Obviously, the Xpro3 is. But that also makes the Xpro2 a little bit cheaper than the newer brother, the Xpro3. So you guys can snag one of these right now for a fairly good price point. I generally would say buy them used. That's where you're going to find the best deals. And if you just scope around the photography groups on Facebook or ask different photographer friends what they have to offer, you'll often find these Fujis anywhere between $400 to around $500 used. And in 2021, this camera is an absolute steal and it's gonna go strong for another 10 plus years. So it's really kind of an investment and I would highly recommend it for 2021 shooters. They want kind of an inexpensive entry level Fuji camera that they can pretty much put all the Fuji lenses on. And that brings me over into point number 2, you guys, the lens selection for Fuji cameras. So I have the Fuji 23mm f2 lens, which is equivalent to about a 35mm focal length. And my goodness, it's probably one of the sharpest lenses I've ever owned. And I've had lenses from Carl Zeiss for my Sony. I had Canon L series lenses before, like the 85mm, and the 23mm is one of the sharpest lenses I've owned. Fuji also offers a ton of other lenses like the 18mm f2, which is a 28mm equivalent, super small, super good looking lens as well. And obviously the very, very sought after 56mm 1.2, which is your 85mm equivalent. And that lens is just gorgeous. You guys see a lot of people like Craig Whitehead use that lens, and it just looks really good for portraits or even in street photography. But one other area the Xpro2 excels at is that because it's a mirrorless camera, you can adapt different lenses using, third-party mounted filters. So a lot of the times I'll see a lot of people who own Leicas take their Summicron lenses, for example, like my 35 Summicron here, and they'll adapt it over to their Leica. Now, to their Fuji, excuse me. Now, unfortunately, I don't have one myself, but can you just imagine the 35mm on the Fuji? I think it'd be a good little match. Hopefully, I'll get one of those soon, and we can test that out on the channel. But the Fuji Xpro2, any Fuji camera really has one of the best lens selection right now on the market for any digital camera ecosystem. Alright, you guys, we're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsor for today's video, our good friends over at Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Now, you guys know I've made my website with Squarespace, and it's honestly been one of my most used tools when it comes to my photography. And for the last 3 years, it's hosted my portfolio, my street photography work, as well as my e-commerce store for selling prints. It's so easy to make a website with Squarespace that I'm pretty sure your mom could do it. And if you're a photographer, this should be on your list for top priorities. The e-commerce feature is one of my favorites as I can track inventory, design my store how I want it, and manage orders all from the same place. And this is great if you want to start selling prints from your film photographs or from the photos you're about to make with an Xpro2. Now, Squarespace is allowing me to hook you guys up with a 10% off discount. Just head over to squarespace.com/KingJapes or enter promo code KingJapes at checkout. This is perfect timing as the new year rolls around, so go make that website of yours. And really quick, huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring my channel. Now, reason number 3, you guys could pretty much end this video right here, but we're going to continue it on. But reason number 3, folks, is the film simulations that are packed in the Xpro2. Now, Fuji put in Provia in here. I think they also have Velvia, but my absolute favorite one is Classic Chrome. Classic Chrome gives you this kind of portrait-like feel to your images, and I know it's Fuji film, so they're obviously using their kind of color gamut, but it makes this camera really worth it. And the best part is you can pretty much tune all of these to your favorite settings to find a balance that works for you. There's black and white presets in here as well. And yeah, you have endless different looks. You have Acros, which is probably one of the best black and white films of all time, if you guys know what I'm talking about. And it's really fun to just kind of play around with the film simulation, see what you can achieve. And it really makes shooting the Xpro2 worth it, in my opinion. Reason number 4. Dual card slots. Now, dual card slots are an absolute lifesaver. You may not need them, but for those of you guys who do shoot events or, you know, professional gigs, like you said, it's an absolute lifesaver. So let me tell you guys a little story about why I really do appreciate having dual card slots in the Xpro2. Now, this didn't really happen with this camera, but I remember shooting with my Sony a7 II, which is actually what's filming this video. And I was doing kind of like a Christmas party event from a company and whatnot. And all I really had to do for that gig was walk around. I had my 24-70, I had a big flash on the top, and just take pictures of the event. People, you know, gathering, people dancing, all of that good stuff. Very free flowing. Now, that event was 5 hours long, and it started with an introduction from people walking through the doors and taking their photographs there. In between there, I switched memory cards, and I didn't realize it by the 3rd hour that the memory card that I inserted after I filled up the first one was bad. And pretty much what ended up happening was between hour 3 and hour 4, luckily it was only a 1 hour gap, my photographs completely got erased. And there was no backup SD card, and I basically missed an hour of the event. It's kind of like I was just asleep in the closet or something. Luckily though, I was documenting also with a Canon EOS 3 and a 50mm lens, and so I had a couple of filler shots from there, but a majority of those images, like I said, were just completely gone. Now, with dual card slots, you're pretty much going to eliminate all of the risk to that. And how I like to set up my Fuji Xpro2 is I like to back up each of my images onto both card slots. So it'll save initially on the first one, and then it'll go into the second one just as a backup. And so I always make sure that I have 2 different copies of it in the camera at all times. And this really just gives me the peace of mind to know that if my first card slot were to fail, or even the second one, I know for sure that one of those is going to carry on my images. Alright, and last but not least, you guys, reason number 5, the Fuji Xpro2, to me, actually was a alternative to a digital Leica. Okay, so you guys know that I shoot a lot with my Leica M2. This is my main workhorse for 95% of my street photography, and I really like shooting the Leica system. But the only issue is digital Leicas, like even like the older M8, still goes for around $1,200, $1,300, and that's like 12 megapixels. If you want to get something, you know, with similar specs to what the Xpro2 is, even on that level, you're looking upwards to pay around $5,000, and I just don't have pockets that deep. And so I initially wanted to purchase the Fuji Xpro1, but I decided that wasn't the one for me, and so I ended up getting the Xpro2, and this is, if not the closest thing, not exactly comparable to a Leica M digital camera, but it is very similar in a sense of style and in a sense of the way you can set this camera up to shoot like a Leica. So I like to shoot this camera only with the rangefinder lines built in inside, or I should say frame lines, because there's no rangefinder obviously inside this camera. So with the Fuji Xpro2, it has that same design as you would on a Leica, kind of a see-through viewfinder here on the left, and it also has these frame lines that are adjusted by the lens that you have on your camera. So with the 23mm f2, it automatically adjusts to fit that focal length. I'll generally also only shoot this camera while manual focusing, and so inside of the viewfinder, even with those frame lines, it still shows you kind of the distance scale to where you are focused to. Another really cool feature though is you can set this camera to have back button focus, which, you know, at any time, even during manual focus, it'll automatically autofocus for you to a specific distance. And this is the closest digital camera that I feel like resembles what a film camera would feel like, especially my Leica. And it's not 100%, but it's about 80% there. So if you guys are looking for a Leica alternative without breaking the bank, man, and you want to expect good quality every single time, the Fuji Xpro2 in 2021 is a steal. And I can only see this camera, as the time goes by, start to slowly decline in price even more. So it could be a better deal next year, and it would still even be a very good deal in like 2 years from now. So pick it up, snag it up, and just join the Xpro2 brotherhood or sisterhood with me. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it, man. Also, again, be sure to stick around for the 100K giveaway and hit that subscribe button down below. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, always leave a comment. And thank you guys so much for sticking through in this one. So I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minolta Gang.